Well, cool. Well, I'm super excited to be with these guys tonight. If this is the first time tuning in to Standouts, the idea is just have conversations with cool people about their business, about their strategy as it pertains to standing out, being different, being unique. And I was introduced to the brand, I think through my sister's boyfriend, maybe a little while ago. And then Anne, who works with us at Only Co. I think she's friends with one of you, all of you. I'm not sure exactly. We can kind of get into that as we go. But so Anne introduced Elliott and me at first. And so I just thought it'd be really cool to get these guys on. We can kind of talk and get to know where they came from and what they're about. With that, yeah. So we got Case, Elliott, and Mattson. And it's great having you all. So if you guys want to share kind of a little bit of your backstory, I think that would be great.
That sounds good. And just forewarning, there's three of us and we all go on our own little tangent. So, and I might miss some stuff, but just to get it going, thanks for having us on. We appreciate it. And Seager is a apparel company. We're in between Western and action sports, and from the beginning, I guess we were grounded in the action sports industry. We grew up in Southern California, grew up surfing. Mattson down in San Diego. I can let him dive more into that. Case and I knew each other from Orange County. And we just wanted to kind of get into the action sports industry, but we didn't necessarily know what our voice was going to be. And, I think it took us a little bit of time to find what we wanted the brand to kind of be. But I think in short, we just wanted to connect our favorite brands, which some of them are Western, some of them are outdoors, and some of them are surf. And, we like participating in all those sorts of communities. So I think just bringing them all together is kind of the root of that. But that's kind of a synopsis there. But I can let the other guys kind of jump in.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a bridge brand in a way. Like you're going across things that normally would be like one vertical, and you're like, no, we're gonna mix this in a really cool way. And I should say too that I had one short conversation, I think, with Elliott, like maybe it was 6 months ago or something. Otherwise, like we haven't met yet. So you all that are tuning in, like this is kind of just us getting to know each other. So so it's cool. So yeah, anyway, Case or Mattson, if you want to share kind of your perspective.
Take it away.
Yeah. Well, all right. We started Seager kind of as a way to project our lifestyles, if you will. We have roots in the surf industry or the surf world. That's kind of like what we enjoyed doing is our pastimes growing up. And we also just loved outdoor world. And we found that there was just kind of a missing link, or not really a brand out there that spoke to what we did every day. Going out to the mountains, the desert, to wherever we were, try to find that outdoor camping fun that you can have while also having that background in surf. So we were also really inspired by the garments that people wore in our favorite Westerns and just nostalgic movies. And so we're like, why isn't there a brand out there that makes that stuff? Why can't we find the clothes that we think look cool on like our grandfather's favorite movies and stuff like that? So we said, let's each put in like $150 and start making some t-shirts and hats and see where it goes, because like if we can't do it, then we're not going to be able to wear things that we truly want. So it kind of just came out of a need or a want for a style that wasn't really out there in our eyes. And if it was out there, it might be like a Filson or something that was a little too outside of our like college wallets, if you will. We were broke. So we wanted to make some products that were good for people our age, that were wearable, timeless, and it kind of grew from there.
So it's like a college wallet brand at some level.
Yeah, at a high level, it was a college wallet brand at first.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. And it's cool too that you made it because you felt like you made it for you first. Like if you didn't make it, then you wouldn't be able to wear it. And that was a bummer. That's motivating. That's cool.
For sure. Yeah, that's still something that we try and hang on to, I think, is thinking, what would we want, what would we make, and being a small brand. And I mean, we're growing and we're obviously significantly larger from the, you know, the inception point, but we're still trying to figure out those new categories and grounding that in what we would want to wear, which is fun because we all have our own unique little flavor, our own style, you know, that kind of adds in, and it's just kind of a group effect of what works, what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Case, what's your side of the story?
I mean, on top of that, I think a funny thing that we like call ourselves like a three-headed dragon. Like we all have our different touches, like Elliott was saying, and a lot of it just comes with like getting down to the bottom of what something looks like at the end of the day, you know? And yep. I think that's always been a cool thing for us, is like a super, super bootstrap brand, like starting with a few $100 is we start with a product, and if it works, we kind of take a step forward and dive into it further. And if it doesn't, we just kind of pass through it and get rid of it. So that's always been like a cool part of Seager, is we've kind of always just created new products that we want for ourselves. So like we'll go on a camping trip and literally be thinking about a tent or a bag that we might have wanted and just start sampling it and figuring out how we can make it and work with our team to make it better than we even thought. And there's just so many different ways that we could make things for ourselves, and it's been cool to figure that out.
That's neat. How do you go about kind of agreeing on something that might be kind of a large investment and a test, and, you know, being a three-headed dragon, that could be a little hard to, you know, to agree, I guess. And that's some of the power and some of the pain, I guess, of being a three-headed monster.
Yeah, it's fun and it's funny, and it doesn't really ever get too heated, but it's always like this battle of figuring out just what is best at the end of the day, and it's challenging each other. So, I mean, we like to say like 2/3 of us have to agree, so the majority has to agree to move forward with it. But at the end of the day, we all want to agree, so we're all happy. So yeah, it's really just challenging each other to make better products.
That's cool. I want to hear about like what's a product that maybe like Case or any one of you, like we're like, this is going to be awesome, and the other two were like, I'm not so, I'll go with it, we'll do it, I'm not so sold. I want to hear like each perspective on that version, biggest like flop and like the biggest success. Like what was kind of the you know, get as specific as you want, but I just love to hear about kind of the product that one of you was really championing that both flopped and was awesome, and another product that was awesome, and what that kind of looks like. I'd just love to hear the story.
I'm trying to think of one that has truly flopped. I would say it's more so in the early days, our fits were just so off because we were just going to LA and figuring out ourselves, and we didn't have a fit guide or a design or anything like that. So we were making products that would come out like 2 sizes too small, and they already had a size label on it. So we just had to advertise it like, okay, order way up if you want this flannel, or order way up if you want this jacket. And that, I don't know, can you guys think of a flop product?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a couple of different stories. It's just funny because we tend to agree on a lot of the stuff that we make, just because it's like all of our styles and we all kind of have the same vision for it all. But there's just like certain design stuff, like for me personally, I definitely have a flop product that I was like, oh, I really want to make a really low key hat that has like minimal branding on it and people will love it. And it was the Eddie product, if you guys remember.
I remember that. Yeah.
And you guys were like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't know. I think we should do it. I was really championing it. Like, I think people will love it. And it just tanked. It did terrible. It didn't sell very well. And so I guess I was off, or maybe the design was off. I'm not really sure, but that was one for sure on my part that I can remember.
I just thought of one too.
Yeah.
This is kind of funny because it's a product that we technically still currently sell, but we made this shirt called Seager Drinking Team, and it just says Seager Drinking Team on it. And I think 2 out of 3 of us thought it was a good idea because we're like, wow, we'd want to be a part of the Seager Drinking Team. Like that just sounds fun to like go wear out. And I think at the end of the day, it ended up selling well, but we went so hard into it that we made multiple different styles and colorways and thought it would be this big thing where everyone was psyched on it. And some people just weren't psyched on it. So it ended up being like a half flop where we just ordered too much of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is sweet. What about one that just did surprisingly awesome? Like maybe you did all agree on it or whatever, but what was that kind of like when you're like, wow, people are really about this? What was the essence of that product? Or
The one that sticks out to me is probably the smoky tea. It's a tea with a bear drinking a beer, and above it it says Seager, because the smoke next to the fire spells out Seager, and then it says here for a good time. Uh, I think Case was originally like, oh, I think it was like a mixture. Like I found this like Indian smoking by, or the fire was smoking. It said like it was a matchbook, and then Case was like, oh, I think we should have a bear drinking a beer, and then Elliott and I are both like, that sounds stupid. Like, why would we need like a bear drinking a beer by the fire? But it's our like by far our best selling tea.
Yeah.
Like it's year over year just crushes every other tea. And it's like a cartoony tea that is just, it's a great shirt, and it's continues to sell well. So it's definitely a success on like something that we didn't think would do well. We didn't think it would stick around, but it just crushes.
Yeah, you never know what's going to hit, really. I feel like it's always kind of a crapshoot. Well, when we design a seasonal catalog, and even just between, t-shirts and snapbacks, even if you just slimmed it down to those, there's always the ones that we think are going to be the best, and we're all confident. All three of us think this one's going to be the best, but at the end of the day, the customer kind of dictates or shows us what did the best, and it doesn't always kind of line up, which is funny. And I feel like over the years, it's kind of taught us to be a little more relaxed, like with the three-headed dragon sort of mentality on not being too granular, not being too perfectionist on that, and kind of, like Case was saying before, with the 2/3, kind of just, if majority likes it, the other person, just has to kind of accept that. But it's really when we invest into new product categories, or maybe higher ticket items, or just higher risk items, that's where we don't do it unless all three of us are excited. If we're not, then we move on to something else. But it's just funny how customers perceive items compared to how we perceive them. Even just within the office, employees, like, it varies on what people like and what they don't like.
Sure. That's cool. Well, I know, thanks for kind of sharing just some of your product stories. That's really neat. I wanted to share a little. Elliott and we chatted. I think, did I mention that we own a brand as well?
I think so, but it would definitely help to just remind me on that.
Yeah. So maybe I'll just give a little bit of my backstory, and then we can kind of go deeper. But yeah, so I started Only Co like 12 years ago, and a partner joined me like 11 years ago. Brady McLean is his name. And then over the years, we kind of grew our agency, doing kind of full stack stuff, just design and creative and web and, social and all the things. And then we came up with this phrase kind of floated to the top: go fast, don't die. And it became a company that we kind of incubated and grew. And so I have some intimate knowledge of like product pain, and like, why didn't this work? And why did that not work? And I don't know if I thought I had one of the products here. Yeah, I don't think I do, but we have this one hat that like my partner he's normally all a part of all the product strategy, but for some reason, some stuff, went through that he didn't really voice his opinion. But it was like this black and yellow and white striped hat, like a beanie with a little lightning bolt, and I was like, that looks pretty cool. Anyway, we ordered like 5,000 of these things, right? And like the I don't know how many we ordered. It was way too many. And they showed up, and Brady's like, is this what are we doing with this? Is this a demo or something, And we're like, no, we're going to start selling these. And he's like, this is the worst hat I've ever seen. And it's not actually the worst hat. It's just totally not his style, and not the go fast style, And so it is pretty funny to see that experience. But yeah, so for me, I'm passionate about working with cool people on cool projects. That's like my life motto and the first core value of Only Co. And so when Go Fast came to be, it was really neat because it was a cool project with cool people. And over the years, that's just been my motto. I helped reopen a ski area, turn it into a nonprofit. Took like 10 years, raised a bunch of money. I was in charge of that for a while. And then married, have 3 kids, a 6, 4, a 1-year-old, and so it's anarchy at my house, but it's fun. But yeah, anyway, grew up skiing a ton. That was kind of my passion. That was my pursuit. Was I would have loved to have been, or at the time, I'm perfectly happy where I'm at now, but at the time I wanted to be a professional skier. It was all about building jumps and progressing in the air, basically, you know, kind of big mountain sort of freestyle in that way. But yeah, so anyway, it's cool that you guys are combining kind of action sports with Western, and being in Wyoming. I think, I don't know how it ranks now, but we're in Sheridan, Wyoming. Maybe you knew that or not, but it's, I think a couple times it's won like most Western town in the United States or something. Has a King Ropes. I don't know. Do you know King Ropes brand at all?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Literally just out our window right there, I can see the King Ropes barn sticking out the side of the downtown. Wow. You know, it's pretty cool. That's awesome. So anyway, that's a little bit kind of my backstory, but yeah, so let's keep talking about you guys. What do you think, if you could encompass it, what do you think is the is like your brand agenda? Like what do you think if you said, like, and I'd love to hear each perspective. Everyone's going to have maybe a different view, or maybe it's all dialed, but you know, if you have an agenda for your brand, like this is what we really want it to accomplish in the world, what do you think that is?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we will all probably have our own slight perspective on that, but I guess just to take a stab at it, to narrow it down as short as possible, I would say having people of different sort of, maybe whether it's geographic disparities, you know, someone who grows up, let's say in Sheridan, or someone who grows up in Orange County, you know, seemingly very different cultures where you grow up. One's the most Western town, one's the, you know, the root of the, you know, the surf industry. You know, you'd think they would be very different people, but in our mind, it's the same person. You know, you're the same type of guy. You're just exposed to different activities around you. But at the end of the day, when you boil it down, it's, you know, there's the same core values and same interests there. And in my mind, even similar styles. And so I think the brand agenda in my mind would just be to kind of melt down a lot of the polarizing style and cultural differences and kind of bringing it down to those core values, you know. Yeah. And our medium really is just through apparel, and, you know, more and more into gear and stuff like that. And content obviously helps push that narrative as well, but that would be my perspective on that.
That's cool. Yeah, just kind of melt down the roadblocks between.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Case, you got a different, or Mattson, you got a different perspective?
Yeah, I mean, same perspective for sure. Definitely have said that same thing myself probably before, but on a different vein, I would say my brand, or my agenda for the brand, would be to create timeless clothing, and because of the way the world is kind of going, it's going in like this fast pace, where kids are kind of growing up a little faster than usual, and, you know, with TikTok and all this like live streaming stuff. I mean, we're doing live stream right now, but in a positive way. I mean, just the styles are just so styles are changing, and I've always been inspired by just a good timeless, you know, flannel and nice jacket and good pair of denim jeans. And I kind of want to make sure that lifestyle, that look and style and fashion stays around. So I wanted to make sure that Seager puts its stamp and keeps that flag in the ground, so that future generations can continue to have that look, even though there may be other fashion styles going on. The people that enjoy what we like are still being represented.
Yeah, that's cool. The picture that kind of popped in my head as I was hearing you talk was just this idea of, like, as time moves on and the pendulum swings in style, you know, like you guys are kind of centered. And so at some level you'll be like cutting edge, right? And then at some level you'll be behind. And then at some level you'll be cutting edge. And then at some level you'll be behind. But it's like you're staying true, you know, to kind of who you are. And I love that concept of it, you know, an agenda to be timeless, you know. That's super cool. I love that.
it is funny too, just because like the timing of this, yet just yesterday we got asked to comment on an article about the Western wear trend right now. And it almost felt funny commenting on it because we're not trying to be part of the Western wear trend. I think it just happened at a similar time that we're starting, or a similar time to after we started. And it speaks to what they're saying is, like, at the end of the day, it's a timeless style. And for it to be a trend right now, it's gonna pass. But if you stick to the true like root of it and stay as core as you possibly can, it will never pass. Like, it'll be a timeless trend for life, you know?
That's cool. Timeless trend for life. That's awesome. They're kind of like, I don't know, they contradict each other a little bit in a fun way. Timeless trend for life. That's sweet. That's cool. So as you guys continue to develop products, you kind of are reinventing the brand or the company at some level every time, you know, you're trying something new. What do you think is important when, you know, I want people that are watching this to be in a position to say, like, oh, that's a strategy for thinking about how something might fit or wedge in or become its own inside of a category. You know, you could talk about the brand. I think we've talked quite a bit about how you guys see it as a bridge and kind of melting down these barriers in between and kind of bridging these cultures, and drawing on their similarities versus their differences, which is really cool. So that seems kind of unique in a lot of ways. But as far as like how you approach the decision to enter into a space, what do you think has been your guys' approach at identifying whether it's worthwhile or not? Like how did you decide to enter into some of the gear side? There's a lot of gear out there. Like, you can get a lot of gear a lot of places. And I recognize you go camping and you go, man, wouldn't this be cool? But to actually go from this ideation to the market, you know, there's a whole host of steps. Like, what is your guys' approach at trying to figure out if it's going to stand out and if it's actually going to be noticed?
I think it roots back to our lifestyle, really. Like, we're not going to make something that we can't appreciate ourselves. So whether it does super well or it's a hot selling item right now, like, we still want to make it if it fits our lifestyle. So for instance, a tent that we made, we go camping all the time and we realized that there wasn't kind of another tent that was A-frame and just more like enjoyable and not so much you're going to take it on this 10-mile backpack trip. So we created a tent and kind of went from there. And I think that's what we'll continue to do, is just make things that are useful for ourselves first.
So there was a component of like, there's other tents out there, but there wasn't one that was just like kind of car camping tent. Like, is that kind of what you mean by the tent? I'm not familiar with the tent, so you could teach me about it a little bit. But
yeah, just casual car camping, family use, like bring a dog in there. I think a lot of tents these days are built for like super gnarly weather conditions or super lightweight, and we'll bring it on a hike. And although we're not trying to make a super heavy tent that isn't built for weather conditions, all that stuff still goes into factors, but we just wanted to make it more enjoyable and aesthetic at the end of the day.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's almost like, it's just, I'm not saying it's not technical, but it's putting the technical part a little bit on the back burner and putting the aesthetic and just like the usability of it kind of on the front.
Yeah.
Is that accurate or a misstatement?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, obviously, like you're saying, you know, function's obviously factored in, and we're not trying to make something that's not going to stand up to the elements. But at the end of the day, it's that sort of lifestyle and that energy and, you know, those sorts of, that feeling that you get, you know, that's why we went with that, you know, that A-frame style. We wanted it to kind of feel nostalgic. And so that was kind of the focus, is really trying to get more of that out there. You know, we wanted people to be hiking around and see that tent and just think, oh man, like my grandpa had a tent like that, you know, and just trying to, through all our products, you know, the tent just being one of those focal points. But like Mattson was saying, with our, you know, our denim jeans we just launched, and with our flannels, you know, a lot of them pull from, you know, really stuff our grandpas used to wear, you know, those items, whether it's gear, apparel, all the likes, you know, we're trying to make things that kind of shine a light backwards, you know, in a way to kind of highlight that, versus everything, like Case is saying, everyone nowadays, it seems like the trend is to be the most technical version of what used to be. And in a way you could say we're dumbing it down, but we're really just keeping it simple and trying to highlight the, you know, the style that once was, you know, just with our own little view on it.
That's awesome. The style that once was, that's a great tagline there. And like shining the flashlight backwards, you know, like that's just a cool image. I'm almost imagining like someone just like literally just like, you know, pointing it back. And it's a cool picture for sure. Are you familiar with Royal Robbins at all? Like
I am, but I definitely need I need a refresher on that.
Yeah.
Like,
You know, this one of my best friends, and then he's our COO at Only Co as well. But his dad was kind of from a generation above my parents, and he just had the coolest stuff from like the '60s. And these pants, there's Royal Robbins, and I remember he found his dad's pants and was like, "Can I wear these?" He's sure, whatever. I've had them for 40 years, you know. And so like he just wore them to school all the time, and they were just way different, you know. They're way unique, and it was like they looked fresh because they were old. And I think that's why I think at times you're going to be behind, and times you're going to be ahead for certain generations. Similar, like, I don't know how old you guys are, but it's interesting to see like pop punk come back into kind of the mainstream when it was huge in like 03 and 04. I went to the When We Were Young festival. I don't know if you guys heard about that at all. Did you hear about it, Mattson? Yeah, it was a trip. My wife and I went in October in Vegas, and everyone was like, "Is it going to be Fire Festival? You know, is it actually going to happen?" Then the first day got canceled because of wind, and it was like, "Oh no!" And we actually had tickets the second day. But you know, you just have this resurgence of like culture from yesteryear, and I think it's cool to see that in a brand like Seager. You know, and I can't name another brand like you guys. You know, so that's why I wanted to reach out and do this, because you do stand out, which is pretty sweet, and you have loyal. Awesome. You have loyal customers, you know, like my sister's boyfriend, he's always wearing it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Go back to your question that you just asked about, you know, making products that just are a little bit, or knowing that there's other products out there. Like, why did we make a brand if we knew it had saturated market? I remember when we first started, my grandpa, he's one of my best friends, I love him to death, but he was like, "Oh yeah, you're making a brand, like you and all the, you know, you and everyone else," kind of thing. And I was just like, "Yeah, but you don't get it. Like we're actually gonna do this, and it's gonna be a real thing." And since then, he's kind of eaten his words, and he knows that it's like a real, like we outlasted just the whole phase of selling T-shirts to our friends and family. And I think the reason behind that is because we do have a niche that's been untouched. The surf world kind of wanted a outdoor brand, and I don't know if the Western world needed a surf brand, but there's definitely people out there that assimilate with both. And even if they only assimilate with one, they think the other one's cool, or you know. And the tricky part about it is we always are fighting to do it in an authentic way on both sides, because the surf culture is very, very quick to judge, and so is the Western culture, like the true core guys. So we understand that, and we try our hardest to make sure that things that we make aren't corny. They're not things that would look poorly on either side, and make us look like a joke to either culture. And that's kind of a hard line to draw at all times. So for the fans, we have a lot of fans, and then there's like just like a couple people that, you know, are haters, but you're just going to that just happens, you know. I think anything, but yeah, from a positive standpoint, there really hasn't been that much backlash. Like I think that's like a testament to what we've done. Is a lot of the positivity that comes from it means that we're coming at it with an authentic approach.
Yeah, it's cool too that at some level, like your grandpa being a you know, your best friend, or one of your best friends, it's like it's a competitive advantage to have someone from generations ago kind of challenge you and be a part of your life, you know, because that means it breeds authenticity, you know. Like if there, and I don't know if this is a common thing, but like if you were to show them something you make and go, "Does this look like something that you'd wear?" You know, and if he's like, "Yeah," and you're like, "This." Yeah. Something I'd wear too. Like that's almost the definition of timeless at that point, you know. And the King Ropes hat, man, the King Ropes hat does that. Like if you ever get out this way, I'd love to have you guys come hang. We got a big office. You could feel free to work remote and chill and whatever. You seriously should take me up on it. But yeah, you cruise around, man. And like, you got skaters wearing King Ropes hat. You have cowboys wearing it. You have like, plumbers. I mean, it just doesn't matter. Brewers, like, it's just, you can go into one place, and this happens all the time, and you'll see there's 40 people in the room, 10 people wearing King Ropes hat, and there's almost nothing similar between all of them, you know, like you just, other than the hat, like the hat is what binds them, you know?
Yeah, totally.
What do you think makes that hat like so timeless to people?
You know, I've often thought of that. Because I've had people approach us and be like, can you make me a hat as cool as King Ropes? And I'm like, King Ropes is a really cool hat, but it's also like so basic, you know, like it's, you know, so yes, it's cool, but it's cool because we all decided it was cool. It's not necessarily cool because you just look at it and go, oh, this is a cool hat. You know, and so I think what was your question again? Say your question one more time.
Like, I guess like what makes the King Ropes hat so like transcendent among like different people?
Yeah. So the one thing I've seen, and maybe you guys haven't seen it, but it seems like a hat that's on the rise in that same way, maybe the beginning stage of this, is the Bass Pro hat. Have you seen the Bass Pro hat lately?
Oh, everywhere.
All the G generations, like all these bands that I listen to that are from like Tennessee and like metal bands, all these different bands, right? All kinds of stuff. They're all wearing, it doesn't matter. It's like, you know, I don't even know if they're outdoorsy or at all, but you'll see even like young gals that you're like, I mean, I don't mean to be judgmental, but I'm like, I don't think they're into fishing, you know, like, and they're wearing it. So you almost have a little bit of a case study in King Ropes that's done it and been it for a while. And then you have the Bass Pro that's kind of on the rise, you know, which is just kind of interesting. So I don't know what does it, but I do know that it's important. It is important that the right people wear it at the right time, because I think that sets the tone for the brand, you know, and if they're just wearing it because they are always the trendsetter, and then they're going to take the hat off and put something else on. Right. So it might last a bit, but if it's the type of person that when they wear it, they love it, and they're not, I don't know, you know, I think it really is closely tied to who wears it in the beginning stages, you know.
Something that I noticed from the Bass Pro hat is it's really popular in like the LA trendy scene, which is really interesting because I think they're wearing it in a sense of like almost irony. Like they're like, oh, like I don't care about bass fishing, but this hat is on my head, and like it's kind of ironic, which is strange. So I actually looked, or I think Elliott and I looked up the hat just to see like what it's selling for on Bass Pro Shop, and it's selling for $5. So I don't know what that means.
They're just trying to flood the market or something like that.
They're smart. They know that it's trendy, and they're just like, let's get these things out
everywhere. Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought to go look. I guess I hadn't seen it enough to be like, that's what I need. I need a Bass Pro hat, you know. In our part of the country, like Cabela's has been pretty big, and then when it got bought by Bass Pro, I think a lot of people, to some degree, like didn't know how to feel about that. It was interesting too, because Bass Pro was a private company and Cabela's was public, and to have a private swallow up a public. And I had friends that worked at Cabela's in various places, and they said it was just a trip, because I can't remember the CEO's name, but Johnny something at Bass Pro, you know, he just is more of a run and gun entrepreneur versus like all the process that Cabela's needed to be this big corporation, you know, even though Bass Pro, I think it might've been bigger than Cabela's, I think, when it got, you know, when they bought, but anyway, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, well, cool. Do you guys have any questions for me? I always like to just, you know, it's just really a conversation. So if you had any, I'd love to answer them too.
Oh man. Well, I guess just how's it been, just to kind of hear what it's like? Have you always been from Sheridan? You born and raised and everything?
So close. I was born in Minnesota, and then my parents moved out here when I was 2. My dad ran a sugar beet seed technology company. So they produced seed all over and then packaged it or processed it here and then sold it. And so that's what brought us here. And then I have no intention of leaving. I left and got an econ degree, ag econ down in Laramie, Wyoming. So I was there for like 4 or 5 years, and my wife, we got married. My wife and I got married while we were down there, and then moved back like 10 years ago. So
nice. And when did you said you got an ecom degree, but is that when the bug for, brands and apparel and, marketing and all that, is that where that stemmed from, or was that kind of an early passion?
yeah. So back in like junior high, I'd like mow a lawn, and it was like kind of just literally one lawn. And then the process of like, I don't really love this, but I do love the fact that like I can make this much in this window. And then I ended up going and saying, hey, I did some research and was like, I think you should probably pay me more each time, And so having the gumption to go like ask for from 25 up to 40, because it was like a 2-acre lawn kind of thing. And, to do that and then see like the results of like, oh yeah, I'll pay you more. That makes sense. As long as you'll do this and this, like you'll put out the water or something, it was like negotiated. And I just found that kind of interesting. And then with skiing, we started filming our everything, and so we made these ski movies in high school. So my COO of Only Co, and then another guy who's an engineer over in Jackson, Wyoming, ultra marathon runner guy. So him and Ann, I think, have connected over that a bit. And then another friend who now sells Morton Buildings in Indiana. If you're familiar with Morton Building, it's like a metal building. But the 4 of us, we'd film all year, and we made these. The first movie is called Karma. And so we premiered it. And similarly to Mattson's story of his grandpa saying, like, you're not really going to do this. Like, I found in I want to say in post, but that's not the correct term. Like, I found later on that my dad, really in the back of his mind, when I said we were going to make a ski movie, he's like, yeah, whatever, but he was always like, cool, very supportive. He bought us some early equipment to kind of convert analog video to digital so we could start editing it. This is before YouTube was around, But after we did it, he was like, I really didn't think you'd pull that off. Like, and I was like, what do you mean? And now you go and meet 15-year-olds and they tell you they're going to do something. Like, how many of them actually do it? I actually have a lot of empathy from my dad's perspective, because it's pretty uncommon for like a 15-year-old and 3 of their friends to say, we're going to work hard at something for a whole year by ourselves, package it up, premiere it, sell it, reinvest. Like, we bought hard drives with what we made. And then the second year was called Skis On. And then the third one was called Last Run, because you're never supposed to call your last run. And we figured, we'd go ahead and call it. And we never made another one after. So, but yeah, so that kind of got me into it. My dad was quite entrepreneurial. Actually, at the seed company, he had a bunch of obsolete seed that would just kind of sit around, and he'd try to figure out, how do we sell this? And they got some phone calls from people that said, hey, can we buy some seed from you? And usually it's like kind of weird, like, why? And they're like, it was like, they're wanting to buy seed. And then my dad's company's like, well, how much seed do you want? And they're like, oh, like a pound. And he's like, a pound of seed? We sell it by like the pallet, like, and so eventually they're like, well, they started asking, like, what do you want it for? And they're like, oh, deer love this stuff. So we want to plant food plots, so back east of Mississippi, these people have these smaller acreages and they're trying to get deer onto their land. And so in places that you can't bait, you can plant food plots and then use that. So anyway, so then my dad fired up this brand called Buck Lunch, and it was under the company. So he didn't own it, but he started selling obsolete sugar beet seed, commercial sugar beet seed, in small batches. And, I think it would do a couple $100,000 a year on stuff they used to throw away, or stuff they used to pay to get rid of, And so, I watched my dad go through that process. At one point he bought Little Jimmy's Italian ice carts. So it was like 300 gallons of frozen whipped ice, but no dairy, but it was like baked into it while it froze. And so it was for my brother and kind of us. We were like in college at that point, so it wasn't really, but he's like, hey, I think this would be cool. And we did like the first soccer tournament and sold like $4,000 in 2 days. And he was like, well, this is pretty cool. And so we ran that for a few years. Just like I would just like pick up the carts and then roll them downtown and like, sell $150 of ice in 4 hours. And, normally it would like, he'd pay me hourly or something. I don't know. But most of the time he was like, "Oh, how much do you make?" "Okay. Yeah, just keep that." I'm like, "Sweet." Like I just make $150 in 4 hours is like a 18-year-old, that's just home for college for a little while. So it was like a lot of weird stuff like that. And then my parents or my dad decided to build a car wash. And so we have 3 tunnel car washes called Letterbuck. And so 2 in Casper, Wyoming, and then 1 up here. And then my dad and I bought into a brewery called Luminous Brew House, 6 years ago, I think. And my brother manages that. My sister managed it before he did. And so we just like love business and love to provide. Wow. Yeah. So it's just fun. So that's
come get a beer.
What's that?
Well, let's come get a beer at the brewery.
Sorry, say that one more time, Case.
Well, let's come get a beer at the brewery.
For some reason, I can't quite hear you.
He said we should go get a beer at the brewery.
Oh yeah, let's do that for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, you guys would love it. It's a cool place, man.
We've been honestly talking for years now about going up to Wyoming. We have a good amount of friends up in Montana, so it's kind of won our heart for the last few years. But it's right there, and I think we've driven through it a couple of times, right around the corner.
Yeah.
But
this year, hopefully.
Yeah, it's on the docket, so we'll definitely be hitting you up there, and we'll get some beer, some ice, we'll mow the lawn, get some seed.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, July like 15th ish is when rodeo week is, and it's like it's kind of anarchy, and it's fun. It'd kind of be worth coming a little before and not have it be so crazy, and then hang out. But you could look it up, wild rodeo. Like it'd be a great time. That's when like tons of people come to town, and it's a fun time. So.
That does sound sick. That's right before actually that Under the Big Sky. I don't know if you've heard of that festival up in what is it, Whitefish? Up in Northwest Montana. There's a music festival there, and it's right around the same time. So it could make sense on the way up if we're driving, or even if we're flying, just to kind of make a pit stop. It sounds fun to me. Yeah,
you bet. We got a cabin up just at the foot of the mountains that we'll put you up, and it'd be great, man. So
that sounds great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll definitely hit you up about that.
Heck yeah. Well, cool. Well, here in the last like 10 minutes or so, do you have any like advice for someone's deciding to start a brand? Or, I think every company now is thinking about how to be more than just a company, but be a brand. So for companies like you guys, like the brand is really what the company is. Same with Go Fast. But I think it's more and more on people's mind of how do I be a brand, not just provide a service, Do you have any tips or advice that you'd give, like either guys that have been around a while and are trying to kind of reinvent, or people that are starting right out of the gate?
That's a good question. I guess, as these are probably all going to be a little cliche, so bear with me and probably us, but I think in terms of being a brand and not just a product and a company and whatnot, but really focusing on, a lifestyle, I guess, which seems to be what you have to do nowadays. I would say finding your voice first, what that is, what your unique style is, what you can bring to the table, finding what that is, and then, being strong and letting it out there, but then staying true to it afterwards. I would say each one of those steps is very challenging to actually do it. They're all very cliche. It's a little bit of an eat, pray, love kind of thing, but I think finding the voice and then just getting it out there and staying true to it is really authenticity. I guess you can boil that down too, but that's the name of the game for us, at least in my mind.
That's beautiful. No, that's really well said. You guys have anything to add, or Elliott just knock it out of the park?
I would say you did a great job.
Thank you.
Knocked it out of the park. Yeah, I think sticking to your guns is a good one. But one thing that really helped us is just once you come up with the idea and you have what you want it to be, then you got to start it. You just got to get after it. And the growth is going to probably be slow unless you have outside investors and you know how to grow a business. But for us, we took it the slow route, and I think that paid off in the long run. But the big thing that did it for us was like, yeah, we had college going on. Yeah, we were working at restaurants, and we're broke as hell. Starting it and getting the name out there and really like growing traction at that time was kind of like investing and having your money compound, because just year over year we've seen double growth. And when you start out with $120, that year over year growth is pretty damn slow for the first few years, but after a while it really compounds and feels good. So yeah, I mean, I guess my advice would be to start your idea as soon as possible.
That's good. That's really good.
Back to back home right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Case, what about you?
Yeah, mine's pretty simple. I mean, those are both great, but I think mine is just like surrounding yourself with the right people and putting yourself in a good spot. Obviously, family and friends were a huge help for us in getting our feet off the ground for years. Like actually years. Family and friends helped a lot, but just as we built a team and have surfers who now surf for us, and like literally employees, but friends of the company and ambassadors and all these different people that we've met along the way who have helped us, like that's really helped us take each next step, whether that's like a mentor or family or friends or just who you hire in the very beginning. I think that's just super important when you're starting.
That's great. When did you guys start?
2015.
Yeah, 8 years ago or something like that.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool to see it grow, man. That's really, really neat. So well done.
Thank you very much.
I was gonna say something that ties into a lot of what you guys said, but especially I think what Elliott said is I was listening to kind of a little podcast thing, and the line that stuck out with me was escape competition through authenticity. And I think that's a common thread that I found with all the different standouts that I've been hanging with, is being true to yourself. And I love that, defining your voice, because in the early days too, like you don't really know how it sounds, and you're not maybe so sure it sounds right or that it's comfortable because it's brand new. But the more you lean into it, the clearer it becomes. And it's like, okay, this is kind of who I am. And there's just a great message there about not trying to be someone else, and that's what Only is about, like as a company, like that's what we're like helping our clients define their position and their voice, and not try to like push a voice on them, but it's hard work. And it's cool, I think, in many ways that you guys are good friends and you can challenge each other in that, like, that's not really our voice. Like, no, that's not really our voice. And like, at this point, again, super cheese, but like there's some harmony, right, with the three of you in that way. So it's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be very challenging to do what we do without kind of sharpening each other, I guess, or tearing each other down and, learning from that, really. I mean, that is growing, I don't think we'd be where we are today without kind of going through those stages together.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Well, I think we can kind of wrap, and then maybe just hang on for the next 5 minutes or so, and we'll just kind of chat offline here. So
that sounds great.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's great having you guys.
Bye, everyone watching.